You can teach people just about anything. So to me, it's not always just about hiring the skills. It's also about bringing people in and developing them.
Welcome back to Life from Within. I'm Kelly Dwyer, your host. Today, I am speaking with Chris Bauer, President and CEO of Endurance Federal Credit Union. Chris and I dive deep into how he has modernized the organization through technology and culture change. He talks a lot about how important trust building is and how he's gone about doing it. He really holds the value of credibility, building credibility for the organization, building credibility in relationships. If you are a leader who is looking to make a big change in your organization to build greater trust, this episode is for you. Enjoy. Today, we have Chris Bauer. Chris is the president and CEO of Endurance Federal Credit Union. He's been leading the organization for almost 18 years, and he's been in the credit union industry for over 30 years. Chris originally studied journalism and worked in radio before finding his way into the credit union industry. Over the years, he's guided his team through growth and cultural change, learning what it really means to lead with patience, steadiness, and empathy. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
I'm curious, do you think how you showed up as a journalist shows up in how you communicate as a CEO?
Well, I think because of my background in communications, obviously there was a lot of being in the public, communicating with people. You can't be shy. Even if you're on air, you're still talking to people. People hear you. There's a lot of public events and things that you go to. So I think it really helped me when I transitioned into this industry, into this role of being able to feel comfortable having conversations with people, talking in public, because I do a lot of public speaking, going to events and just communicating with people within the industry, a lot of my peers, other leaders in the communities. You have to feel comfortable speaking with them.
So you stepped in as CEO almost 18 years ago. When you stepped in, what needed to change? What were some of the things you saw? Some of the first steps you took?
Well, there was a lot actually that needed to change. We were actually Halliburton Employees Federal Credit Union at the time. I'm from Oklahoma, but actually had been living out of state for a while, and I came back to this credit union, and they had been without a CEO for about a year. So as you can imagine, you're coming in, things are a little bit in flux because they've been kind of almost managing themselves to a certain degree. And then I come in, I'm an outsider. And this is in 2008. So the markets are crazy. The financial crisis is looming, or we're in the middle of it at that time.
It's here.
Right. It's an oil and gas credit union. So fortunately, and unfortunate for us at the time, is it wasn't affecting them so much. It usually always hits that industry later at the end of a recession or at the end of a crisis. So we weren't in it yet, but it was coming. We have some employees that have family members and spouses that work in that industry. So they were kind of nervous about how that was going to affect us as an organization, how that was going to affect their family. Anyway, when I first came in, I started looking at the credit union. And from my experience of working for other credit unions and other executives and CEOs up through my career path, I thought, wow, our size of credit union, we weren't a big credit union, but we weren't tiny. And it was like our technology in process is way behind, like way, way behind. But then you had individuals that were in positions here that felt like it was just fine. It's what they were used to. It's what they're comfortable with. I always think you should always be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I was about to make a lot of people uncomfortable with some decisions I was going to have to make, and including my board, because we've been trucking along and they've been moderately successful in what they were doing. But as a CEO, you're coming in and you're really about to make a whole lot of changes to this entire organization. And it's going to go one or two ways. It's going to really, really take off and you're going to have a lot of success, or it could be just a colossal failure and it's all going to come down on you. So I just kind of started implementing small changes that I felt would benefit the credit union and just kind of let them take hold. The biggest one is in our industry, we have a core system, which it runs all the financials, all the transactions, everything in the organization for our members. I was familiar with the system and I knew the system was outdated when I got there, and we were going to outgrow it if we didn't change it. I had a lot of pushback from people within the organization that I could just tell that they were not happy about this disruption, what this was going to do to their lives. Because core conversion is a big, big deal. I mean, it's huge. I spent a lot of time weighing different proposals and evaluating. It's about a 2-year process to even begin those types of changes. And I just knew I needed to be really intentional in my decision, not be reckless in our decision. That was really something when I came in there that really, really needed to change. But I really needed to change the mindset of the individuals that were there that this was good for us. This is
Yeah.
something we really needed to do.
It sounds like you were able to identify which parts of the organization, which people in the organization were going to have the most resistance to change. And of course, we're humans, right? We say we want change, but then we resist it. We say we want to do these things, but then we show up doing the thing we used to do yesterday, right? So you made your decision. Did you make that decision in concert with other leaders within the organization or with your board, or how did you do that?
Well, it was both. First of all, you talk to other executives in the organization, and they were a little gun shy because they had gone through a core conversion with the previous CEO, and it was an absolute train wreck. And I understand their hesitation because it's a big deal. So I had to give them assurances and get insurances from whoever we were going to go with that we weren't going to have the same kind of problems that we had with the last core conversion. And we were able to convince our executive team that this was the right decision. I mean, to me, having these candid conversations with people, I mean, sometimes you just have to be direct with people and just tell them this is something we need to do. I don't ever like to think I have to sell an idea to somebody because then I feel like I'm convincing you of something you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
You really want to have a conversation with somebody and explain to them fundamentally how this is going to reshape us, how this is going to help us, and make sure that they understand why we're making this decision.
So you were building buy-in, not
Oh,
necessarily
absolutely.
persuading, right? It wasn't
Yeah,
about persuading, it was about building buy-in.
I don't like persuading as
Mhm.
an avenue of leadership at all. I think you really need to have everyone on board and understanding. Not everyone's going to agree, but they need to understand
Yeah.
why we're doing this and that why it's a good thing for us. And that was big.
I bet there's two different things that are fighting in my head right now. One is I think I've heard you mention that you're a fan of Simon Sinek. This required culture change, right? In order for this transformation to be successful. Simon Sinek has this video and he talks about how it kind of follows this law of diffusion of innovation, I think is the name of the law, where it's like that crossing the chasm, early adopter to early majority to late majority. And he says that you need 16% of the organization essentially to be bought in on the change in order for the culture to shift. So I'm curious, how long did the transformation take and what was that arc like that you observed from a cultural shift?
Oh, I think that's pretty accurate. I think it took probably 18 months or so of constant sitting down, talking to my team, showing the direction and what we're looking at, how this is fundamentally going to reshape us and how this is going to help us, and that we are trying to change the culture as far as involving technology and digital and things like that going forward. We did a lot of manual stuff. I was shocked at how much manual stuff we did. So I never want to be like a cutting edge person, but bleeding edge is fine. But I think 18 months or so through the 2 years, through the whole process, through the actual conversion itself. And then once they saw things were going the way that I explained that they would go, they started to trust the process. And
Great.
trust is huge. I mean, people
Yeah.
need to trust you.
Yeah. Well, and you were new, so they were getting to know you.
Yeah, they were. I remember my IT manager came to me one day. She goes, "You need to quit signing contracts." But she said it in a very loving way. But, it's kind of like, just trust me. I know what I'm doing here. Okay. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you.
Yeah, but that's the fear, right? In that process, 18 months, 2 years, eventually people got to the place of trusting the process. Were there early champions within your organization, within your executive team, evangelizing this to other people in the organization?
There was a couple right off the bat that I had a really good rapport with and understood what I was trying to do for the organization. My younger executives and younger managers were the ones that embraced it. It was the long-term people who had been here, and some of them are still here. They're the ones and I figured I would get the pushback on just because they just weren't as open to new technology and what all that entailed and some of the risks that were involved. They were very risk averse and it has to be cost prohibitive too. So, I had to take everything into account. But all in all, yeah, I had a couple that really, really helped and a couple that were challenges for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. It strikes me as you talk about this process of transforming your core system, There was a lot of patience you had to demonstrate there.
Oh, absolutely. And early on, this wasn't my first CEO position. I was CEO at two organizations prior to this. They were much smaller and I was younger. I mean, maturity does help with age and growth and, development. Maybe a younger me or a less mature me or less patient me would have come in and said, this is what we're going to do and we're going to do it right now. This is going to be awesome and you guys are just going to love it. I would have just rolled right through it and wouldn't have thought otherwise. And probably left the room thinking like, what's he doing? This definitely took patience, took a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. How would you define the cultural shift? So you've talked about, well, the culture had to become more technology friendly, let's say, or open to
hmm
technology. What other cultural shifts had to be made to make that successful?
I think understanding that if you want to grow, succeed, and we want to survive as an organization, we need to embrace some of these things. We can't reject them as we don't need them or it's not important because they are important. But then again, that's just your culture. Our culture, needed to change a little bit. We need to be more communicative, have trust within our organization. I'm just big on being open and transparent and communicating with our team and let them know what direction strategically I would like to see us go, where the board would like to see us go, blending in ideas that they might have where they want us to go. I just think it just opened up a whole new avenue of communication maybe they didn't have before.
Okay, so openness, transparency about the strategy, communication. And you also mentioned that, hey, we have to do this in order to survive as an organization. And I think it's very easy for us, even as individuals, but certainly as an organization, to be very inward focused and forget the context within which we're living. And so you helped them see a bigger picture about, hey, if we want to survive, we can't just keep doing things the way we've been doing them. We need to evolve. So, how did you operationalize greater communication, greater transparency? What were the specific things, practices that you put into place to help that come to be?
You just are more intentional in having those conversations, meeting with your people more regularly, giving them a voice, developing a coaching regimen with them to give them an opportunity to express whatever it is they feel like they need to express, but also giving you a platform to say, look, this is where I see us going. This is where I see you going. It was being run as like a very small organization when I arrived here. I really wanted it to turn the corner and start being taken more seriously as a growing, bigger organization, which we've more than doubled in size since I've been here. So it's clearly worked, but it did take some time. You have to have buy-in for sure. But again, that just all starts from me and communicating and being very intentional what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, there is that saying that culture flows from the top. So more meetings. So I'm assuming that's one-on-one meetings. Did you start to have more all hands or all staff types of meetings where people could voice their opinions, or was it more one-on-ones or small groups?
It was a combination. We did start with having executive meetings where we could specifically all sit in a room and talk, which they weren't doing. And then, yes, we started rolling in all staff meetings so we could communicate direction where we were looking at as an organization, things we were looking at changing, why we were changing them. So yeah, they could voice their opinion. Unfortunately, most people don't. They probably go in the back room and do it sometimes, but they won't do it there in an open forum. But we did give them the opportunity, so they have to know that we were serious about giving them a chance to speak.
Okay, so your experience has been that people are a little more reticent to speak. Because I think sometimes people have the opposite experience where they open up the floodgates and then everyone's a critic. And then you have to figure out what to do as a leader. Okay, people are speaking up and they're saying things, but not all of it is appropriate to act upon. It's not all necessarily relevant. And some of it is personal to that person and not organizationally related.
I think that happens in smaller settings, not a big group setting like that. I mean, because I do see that a lot. I have a CEO lunch every month, and I usually bring 4 or 5 of our team members with me, and it's very casual. I don't grill people. But the way that they will open up in that little 3 or 4 people setting, like, I'm sitting right here, right? But anyway, it's kind of, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of personal stuff, and they'll just let it fly. So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, so how do you then, as a CEO, walk that fine line of, hey, I want to make sure people feel that they're heard, meaning because sometimes it's enough for someone to just have someone holding space for them to say what they want to say.
Hmm.
Other times it's not enough. There's an expectation of, hey, I just told you this thing. Now I expect you to do something about it. So how do you as CEO parse through what's important to act on and how do you handle what you're not going to act on?
Right. Well, I think you have to first let them know that you hear them. And then second of all, you have to let them understand where you're sitting, why that won't work or will work, or the challenges that go along with that. Because a lot of times they just think you're sitting in here and you just push some magic button and just make things happen. And they also have to understand I have bosses that I have to talk to, that I have to hear from, my board. So I can't just unilaterally just make a whole bunch of wholesale changes because someone comes to me and says, I don't like this, or we should do this. No, I have 7 other people that disagree or agree with me that this is the change we need to make and this is why.
I love that. So what you're describing there is, hey, I'm going to be open and honest with you in return. They're sharing their perspective and you share your
Hmm.
perspective back.
Correct.
Like, well, from where I sit, this is how I see that situation. And as a CEO, you have these multiple stakeholder groups. In the 18 years that you've been leading this organization, you've doubled in size. That original transformation, the biggest change you made originally has been successful. So that didn't go off the rails. Wonderful. That built trust within the organization. It shifted the culture. Is there a misstep that you made somewhere in the last 18-ish years as CEO that you really learned something key from?
I would think the biggest regret I have, we built a new corporate here about a year and a half ago. I really disappointed that we didn't move actually faster on that. I think I did set back on our heels because I was listening to too much outside noise, thinking that it may not be a good idea. Maybe it would be too expensive an endeavor. I get too much pushback from the board. I get too much pushback from the members. Even though in my mind, I really thought that it's something we really needed to do. I mean, you upgrade all this technology, you upgrade your systems, you upgrade all these beautiful things, and then you don't change the building, you don't change some of those things that really needed to be upgraded. So we changed our name, we rebranded, and I just really kind of just wish I hadn't have waited so long on that. I hadn't listened to my gut and what I really felt like was the right move, and just would have went for earlier with it.
So what was the impact of waiting too long, quote unquote, too long?
Well, the obvious impact is that we would be sitting in this nice building earlier than we are right now and be in a more desirable part of town, a little bit more visible, taking us a little bit more seriously as an organization. Because I just think we've always been known as this little credit union. I think when we built this and people started to say like, hey, they really care about the community, they're a serious organization and add some credibility to us. Some of our things that we can do in this building as far as having meetings, and we built a community room that people within the community could actually utilize. So we were giving back, which is something I always wanted to do. And we couldn't do that at our other location. I just wish we would have done it sooner because, I mean, the obvious thing is we had been doing it for years other than just now.
Gotcha. And what was the nature of the pushback you were getting?
So what really kind of made this push forward a little quicker is we actually started looking at doing it maybe right after COVID. But then we were already having problems staffing. So I had 2 locations here in this community, and I was having a hard time keeping them fully staffed all the time, getting people to want to come to work. And just like everybody else was having, or keeping people because they were leaving to go down the road someplace else. So I kept thinking, well, if we're having this hard enough time, then we just need to take how we're doing our branching structure and our building structure and just make the one branch, have a community building, have them close together like a campus. Well, it's a campus feel. And then I just have to worry about staffing one place, but we'll staff it as much as we possibly can, have as many MSRs available and new accounts people available as we possibly can. And to answer your question, when we started initially having issues at the other location, I started getting pushback from members about the service, or we would have to close down for a certain period of time because I didn't have enough people. And of course, then you had to put people in quarantine. So you were closing one location. So you're already starting to get that feel that people on one side of town were going to feel slighted if you moved your location to the other side of town,
Mhm.
even early on. So I started thinking, well, this is going to be a challenge. But then at some point, we just need to realize what seemed to be maybe a little bit of a curse become a blessing because you had to. So we started transitioning it down. So we slowly transitioned it to fewer people, to not even having teller transactions or anything at that location, to essentially close completely and then transition everything to the new building.
Hmm.
And here we are.
It was something you wanted to do,
Hmm.
and the pandemic
Helped.
helped move past some of the worry or concern about the backlash you might get by doing it.
Right. We still
Okay.
got it. We
Okay.
still got it, trust me. But because we were able to transition and people are just creatures of habit. So after a
Right.
while, when they just realized changes were coming, they just had to change their habits. Again, I just wish we'd have done it sooner.
What do you want to share that we haven't talked about yet?
I think that people just have to realize that leadership is not something you put on a whiteboard or hang on your wall. I mean, you really, really need to walk the walk for people. That's the one thing that if you want to have credibility, you really need to lead through what you're saying. If you don't believe those things, then you don't believe them. But if you really do want a culture and you want to be a good leader, people need to trust you. They need to believe in your character and who you are. I think we hire very good character people here because I'm, very big on that. And I also believe that you can teach people just about anything. So to me, it's not always just about hiring the skills. It's also about bringing people in and developing them. I just think as leaders, you shouldn't just look at someone on a piece of paper when you're hiring people. Who's the true character of a person? And are they hungry and will they work hard for you? Because my best employees are those people that you took a chance on, gave them an opportunity, and someone took a chance on me. I'm sure someone took a chance on you or somebody else who's listening. Think about that when you're making a hiring decision. Someone with the right personality and character, it's hard to beat someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. How do you suss out character in an interviewing process?
Well, obviously, you do your due diligence on them. There's a few things that we have them do as assessments that we try to look at. Then over time, as we did those assessments, and then you can see some individuals who really flourished, and then you can go back and look at that assessment and go like, well, where were they strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you see the ones that like, wow, what did we miss on that one? And you go back and look at the assessment, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. So we start seeing trends in individuals, how they're doing the assessments, and obviously interviews. You can sometimes weed them out pretty quickly too. Some people are unbelievably too honest in interviews sometimes too. We've really tried in our culture to create an environment that we're trying to hire the right people to fit our culture for sure. And not everyone's a fit. When we started a program, back about 6 or 7 years ago, we told people some of you are going to be a fit for this and some of you are not. We're just completely going to be honest with you. And some people are going to transition themselves out and some will transition themselves in.
Tell me more about that program.
It's called Service Star. It's a credit union specific culture and leadership coaching program.
Cool.
But you have to be very consistent with it. And we are. I mean, that's one thing we weren't doing before either. I came across this and I actually knew the individual that was running it. He was an ex credit union CEO. And I really just believed in what he was doing. And we kind of massaged it and made it our own. But you still use those principal key techniques when you're trying to develop your people. Some people you just can't. But, for the most part, if they're willing and able, you can make it work.
Okay, great. And so the program, it was training your leaders to work with their team members? Is that
Correct.
okay?
Yeah. I think your key is in your middle management. When you get your middle management buy-in, then they're going to be working with your entry level employees to get their buy-in and to coach them and develop them and get them to the next step. Because we're all about promoting from within. I mean, we're all about, developing our key people.
I
If
love
we,
to hear that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just think you should.
Yeah. Humans like to feel, well, first of all, we love it when people invest in us, right? And so
Hmm.
you're doing that, investing in your leaders, and then your middle management is investing in the front line, the entry level, the more junior folks, right?
Right.
So thing one, we love to feel like we're being invested in as people and cared about in that way. And then secondly, humans love to feel like we're making progress. We're making progress against something specific, a goal or an intention around growth. So what's next for you? You've done so much there. You've doubled in size. You've shifted the culture. You said yes to this interview because you want to give back. Is that really what's next for you, is finding more ways to give back, or what's present for you?
For me personally, just continuing to build on what we've done here, to continue to look for more avenues that we can get more involved in our communities, continue to grow our brand into areas in which maybe they haven't been exposed to it. And not just the endurance brand, but the credit union movement itself, because it's a huge movement. So we've really tried to go into underserved areas and grow. We just put a new branch in a rural area of Oklahoma last year where there's hadn't been a craving presence ever. And we'd already had a branch that we had put out there maybe 8, 9 years ago. That's really starting to do very well in another rural area of Oklahoma. So we have the blue ocean theory where we kind of go where there's lesser competition and more opportunity for us. We have found that to be very successful. So again, we're going back to embracing technology, doing some more video banking, smaller
Oh, interesting.
branches, yeah, smaller scale branches, more technology use, and going to see if that model will work. Technology and everything in the industry is changing so much that even though I've been doing it for 30 years in this industry, not as a CEO, but in this industry for 30 years, there's always a new challenge. There's always something. I'm always looking for something to challenge myself, something that's can help this organization grow because I love this organization, the people in it. Our board has been fantastic and very forward thinking. I think you definitely have to have a forward thinking group to be able to accomplish some of the things that we've done. And maybe someday I'll retire and consult or something. Maybe I'll
Maybe.
have a podcast like you, Kelly,
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Chris. It's a lot of fun. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and sharing of your wisdom. And you're on LinkedIn, so people can
Hmm.
follow you on LinkedIn, right?
They can, yes.
Okay. And you post quite a bit. So we'll share your profile link in the show notes.
I really appreciate you having me on and talking to me about myself and this organization. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And good luck with all the changes and the growth. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone who could benefit from it. I'd love to hear from you. I would love it if you would rate the show, of course, 5 stars. What would make a real difference, though, is if you leave a review sharing what you like about the show and what you want to see in future episodes. I do want to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. Your time is precious, and I feel a lot of gratitude that you're choosing to share some of it with me. Catch you next time on Life from Within.